Hi, I'm Dan, this is That Midlife Crisis Motorcyclist, and this is the BMW F900R, perhaps the most forgotten and overlooked bike in BMW's current range. Or would be, were it not for the fact that BMW had done something rather clever and built an entire race series around this bike called the F900 Cup, which competes alongside British superbikes and has done quite a lot to put this bike on the map. We'll get to that in due course though, but let's first of all have a look at the bike that inspired that whole race series. And I'll have to say that even for that, BMW does not spring to mind for me as a manufacturer of sporty nakeds like this. It's better known for its GSs and all that kind of thing, isn't it? And it's further confused by the fact that the sort of sporty naked market, as I see it, I could be wrong, kind of splits into two tiers, and this falls in between. Let me explain what I mean. So you've got the kind of sub 9 grand, sub 100 horsepower bikes like the Honda CB750 Hornet and the Suzuki GSX 8S, Triumph Trident 660, things like that. And they're all great bikes and relatively affordable. Go a little bit above that, spend a bit more money, 10 grand and over, and you get into a more serious category of sporty nakeds, characterised by things like the MT-09 and the KTM 990 Duke, which I was riding on a channel not that long ago. They've got 120 horsepower or more, much more serious bikes in general, sportier, faster, and all that kind of thing. As I say, the F900R kind of falls between them because the starting price is £9,090. The power output is 105 horsepower, so it's almost kind of neither one nor the other in that sense. It's not helped by the fact either that you've got the Honda Hornet, the CB1000 Hornet, landing at about the same price with a load more power courtesy of its Fireblade engine. So yes, slightly tricky territory for BMW, never mind the fact that, as I say, it's not a manufacturer that springs to mind as the builder of this kind of bike. But let's have a look at what we've got here. So the F900 is part of the wider F series family, so it sells alongside the F900 GS and XR, to which it's quite closely related. It's built around a steel frame and the 895cc parallel twin, which is built by Lonsin in China, and I know very well from the Vosges DS900X that I was running on the channel not that long ago. As I say, it puts out 105 horsepower, which is a bit more than the Vosges. You can also have it in A2 licensed trim if you like. But yeah, it gives it a little bit of an edge, but it's still trailing the MT-09 and others like it by a fair old whack in terms of power. Where it does fight back, I would argue, is that it's got a bit more of that kind of BMW premiumness about it, if that's even a thing. So you've got that nice TFT screen, the kind of roll and push interface with it, which I think is one of the slickest systems in the business. It's got really nice menus, it's really logical, it's packed with functionality, and the app that supports it seems to work really well too. Now the F900R and XR got some upgrades for 2024. These included lighter wheels, repositioned pegs and bars for slightly sportier riding position apparently, upgraded ABS Pro, which is now cornering ABS and traction, and a few other bits and bobs. That's the bike that you see here. Now to that you can add the dynamic pack, which this bike has. That adds about another 900 quid, so it gets you up to 10 grand all in. That throws in some really quite tasty features like a quick shifter, and it also includes electronic suspension adjustment, so electronic damper control as well. That's quite a snazzy feature. You also get a dynamic pro riding mode, whatever that does. I've not quite figured it out yet. This bike also has the comfort pack, which is another few hundred quid, so it gets you up to about 10.5 grand. That includes heated grips, cruise control and keyless go. So yeah, 10.5 grand, it's quite a lot of money, but then it feels like a lot of bike. Those features are quite snazzy for a bike of this level, aren't they? Particularly the electronic damping control. That's really quite smart on a bike like this. Then we get to the race bike, which costs a little over 13 grand and is an off-the-shelf bike you can compete in the F900 Cup with from the off. That gets you, let's say, the bike, it's prepared by Fortis Racing. They do some modifications. They also bolt on all the extras that you need to go racing, so an exhaust, ECU, different suspension, rear set pegs, things like that. So it gives this road-going F900R a bit of extra credibility, I think, which I would say maybe it needs, because, as I say, is this BMW operating outside of its comfort zone? Can this bike compete with all those other bikes like the MT-09s and the Dukes and the Hornets and all that kind of thing? quite a few questions to answer. Let's go out for a ride and see if we can figure it out. Right, so let's give this F900R a run and see if BMW really can do sporty middleweight nakeds as well as it does big adventure bikes. Now, if you're looking for a super sendy video of this bike's sporting cred, you'll have to bear with me because today is not the day for that. The roads are very greasy, it's very cold, sun's low. So yes, it'll just have to be a steady little pootle around and see what this bike's like. But first impressions are that it's quite a compact little bike. I think the peg position, I don't know what it was like on the previous model year version, but it feels quite racy. I feel quite crunched up and kind of, it's quite a sporty riding position, which surprised me because I thought it was going to be a bit more kind of all-round than that. So that was a surprise. The other first impression is that it feels super high quality. It's definitely a premium bike, more so than perhaps some of the others you might be looking at in this class. So yeah, as you'd expect for BMW, it definitely feels quality, which is nice, which does set it apart a little bit. So those are kind of nice first impressions. Let's get past these guys here. And as you can see, it's got plenty of grunt. The engine is, I say I know it from the Vosges, but it feels a lot punchier than the Vosges, and it's also got a really nice sound to it as well. It's quite throaty, and it's got a good burble to the exhaust as well, so there's a bit more character to the engine than you might have expected from it being a modern parallel twin and all that. So that's a nice surprise, and it certainly doesn't feel slow. So although it's, as I said in the intro, it's in this interesting middle ground between the kind of full-on power of an MT-09 or that 990 Duke, and the more kind of beginner-friendly, cheaper bikes. But it's certainly quick enough, and it's nice and torquey, and I hope you can hear it over the wind. But yeah, it's got a good growl to it, and that quick shifter is really, really slick as well. So that and the kind of sporty riding position definitely put you in a frame of mind. I'm thinking it's not quite as aggressive as the KTM, the 990 Duke, so it doesn't quite have that sort of feistiness about it. It's quite a bit heavier at, I think, 204 kilos in this form, so quite a bit heavier than the KTM, down on power as well, and it doesn't have that KTM sort of agility to it either. So it's not a slow bike by any means, but it's definitely not the feistiest. It's no MT-09 in performance terms, but there's a sophistication about it which is really quite appealing. So having electronic damper control on a bike at this price point is really impressive, and there's just a quality to the damping that is really impressive. Like I say, it feels like a premium bike, and the quality of that suspension is lovely. I'm running it in the softer of the two modes right now, obviously because of the road conditions, but there's a definite difference as you go up through the damping modes, and it means a much sharper bike as well. There's manual adjustment as well for preload, compression and rebound, so you can fettle with the bike quite a bit. So although it might not have the headline power of some of its rivals, I think there's a quality and a sophistication to the bike which kind of plays up to the BMW bounce, doesn't it? You'd expect a BMW to have a bit more in the way of premium vibes, and so it proves on the F900. So it's an appealing mix, and just the touch points, things like this screen here, the graphics and the interface are just really slick. So I think as an ownership proposition, this F900R makes a really strong case for itself. So it's just a brief impression, but I think this bike has the quality to it. It's got a surprising feistiness, which perhaps explains how it's been turned into a race bike, and it's got a real sense of quality as well. So I'm still intrigued though. It's as I say, it falls into a strange middle ground of being posh and premium but not blazingly fast, and I wonder if that's enough to tempt people out of MT-09s and stuff like that, because an MT-09 is only a few £100 more than this, and you get a triple engine, a whole lot more power, an aluminium frame and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, an interesting bike. I think there's more to discover, but I'd say it's a nice surprise that BMW does sporty naked as well. Who knew? Okay, so if you wanted the full send video really exploring the F900R's racing routes, then, well, today clearly wasn't the day, was it? But I hope you got a sense of what the bike's about, and I've really enjoyed riding it. I've been looking forward to giving this bike a go for a long time, and it hasn't disappointed in terms of the way it looks, the way it feels, the sense of premium quality that it has about it, all that kind of stuff. I really like that. There's some really lovely detailing in it, which you'd expect from a BMW, just in terms of the fit and finish, the components, the technology, the rider technology, the interface with the screen, all that kind of stuff. It's just a very nicely executed product, and things like electronic damping control on a bike at this price point, at this sort of performance level, it gives it something a little bit different, doesn't it? It's a real standout feature. I think if I were to summarise the F900R, it feels very mature, but is mature what people want out of bikes like this, when after all, for not a lot more money, you could have an MT-09, which definitely isn't mature, is it? So it's an interesting one. I think, as I said at the start, it seems to fall into a bit of a no man's land between the more affordable sporty nakeds and the properly fast ones as well. In some ways it's almost a comparison with a Ducati Monster or something like that. I don't know, but I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts. Is this BMW doing something interesting, or is it just playing out of its comfort zone? Let's have a chat about that in the comments. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would be great. And for now, I'll say goodbye, thanks for watching, and ride safe.